She stomped her feet and walked away full of breath. They're just friends. He's flipped all over the fucking road. Hot Vietnamese judge, spicy heart meaning. Of course, they dare to fight. They are determined to die if given the chance. They said they would beat the photographer to death. It's just that looking like that makes me a little nervous. At this time, the wind. A source of soul, the force that comes forth. Surrounding. The body gradually takes the form of the soul. Enhance body strength. He's got a six-pack body, and it's broken. While the danger is holding hands. Tell yourself it's a small thing. I give you 3 tricks. Avoid being said to be weak. The photographer can talk right away. Fast as the wind followed the pointer. Cause provocation when hit by the pointer. Laughing at why you're so weak. He laughed and said it wasn't enough for me. But seconds later, the photographer threw a punch. Physiological maintenance SAO. Then taste this benefit. Punch him in the stomach. Make the green face want to breathe. He seems to have taken this one shot, and he wants to sacrifice himself. Then the photographer coldly said, "Don't belittle children." Vietnamese judge here. I was afraid to drop my pants. When I saw the cause, I knelt to the ground. He kept throwing up in front of everyone. It makes the dead wonder without words. Even Chen Lin's sword uttered interestingly. A sovereign right lying on his stomach. It's just copper bars. SAO has the power of martial arts. While the root trembled all over. Vomiting endlessly. You can raise your head. I think the aesthetic is too weak. It's a rich family, of course. Rely on knitting medicine to get qualified today. And the reason is extremely AK Tim. When you yourself are well prepared. I think it can be boring. But it turns into raw like this. People say the government is too hostile. That's why this happened. The other guy said no, he's hiding power. Now, I tried to hold my stomach full of pain. He raised his hand and said, "Give me 3. Now there is a trick. There are 2 tricks. Make him afraid to pee in his pants. It's the destiny. See that? People around me laughed and couldn't find it. Your mouth is always creepy. To date, I also laughed and thought that photography was really bad. Everyone is laughing hard, haha. Make the Department of Insanity think so hard. This is you finding yourself, claiming I killed you. He sent out a full of shit. But the photographer thought calmly. That's another rich guy. Even martial arts know that. But he dodged the blow gently. They make it impossible to attack them. That's why he was surprised by the sword. Suddenly, she leaned to the side. Ready to steam up kick in. Right into his striker. Makes him spin his jaw. Body fluttered a meter away in pain. Then the photographer made fun of me. Are you going to play bad? Make people stare in wonder. The sword said that this boy was a cruel lover. 13 years old, intelligent martial arts. Cultivation to the white-silver fusion of love spirit. The roof guy asked. See soul in red. You can practice to the level of white-silver. The sword also made Chen Lin think. I have a feeling that photography isn't simple. Laughing here, thinking, you see, your brother still despises you. Look at the power of photography. It makes me think. Regent taught himself 9 imperial state development. Then, he must have done much more harm by himself. At this time, the facility is fertilized. I kept thinking I was a 3-star. I can turn people up. He told himself he'd lost at the hands of a 13-year-old boy. It's definitely a shame. He looked at the photographer and thought yes. His soul power has not yet come. The homogeneous bar immediately bloomed out a cunning smile. When at this moment, the soul is violently expanding into the body. Original department, I can see that Lan yelled at me to stop. But he was determined. I want to go down the road of death. This made him think. All his soul power. It is concentrated in the soul of the sea. It's absolutely impossible to scream. This guy, despite the huge difference. You can't use points. It's such a powerful soul. He wants to destroy me. I want to blow up my soul. Then it's delicious. Soul Release Department Lao came laughing, haha. Dare to stand still in place. Okay, I also want to see what other tricks you have. Suddenly, the lights flashed, hit his soul force. That made the photographer hug his head. I screamed for an hour because of the pain. Really shiver. Surrounded by the soul is the green energy of the whole body. It's all sweaty. It makes the department look surprised. When his soul is so weak, it can still survive. And then he laughed and said, "That's right. It's this shivering form." He immediately emits a soul more powerful than the attack. The photographer shouted, "Be brave. He's here. I think it should be treated quickly." Hai's soul is crumbling. Close your eyes and concentrate on reading the angel's decision. Surprise the spirits of the original. It's all absorbed into photography. He is full of questions. It is strange that every time I prepare, I disappear. But he had a smile on his face. Think just Hai's soul exploded. He became an invalid. Right now, outside people with anxious faces. Suddenly, she woke up. Emit the source of the soul, the power of resistance. Strong then, unharmed, but with a light smile. I think it's lucky that there are angels. Reluctant to resist. And the cause here is itchy. What the hell just happened? Why can that be? I don't think he was made. Let all your soul power fall. Without ridiculous SAO. The facility gradually discovered. His soul power slowly dried up. Hai's soul of photographer didn't even explode. Right now, it's a heart that cries out to my soul. The photographer said, "If you come, don't think about leaving." He put his hand on the air. I know the whole story. The situation is now critical. You must quickly recover your soul. But it's too late. Soul force when you want to withdraw from the photographer. Then suddenly, it breaks. It should be stopped, and it should cause itself to bleed. I'm confused about what kind of distortion it is. Who the hell is he? Even the pure bar hasn't arrived yet. They can seal the soul. Your face is blue, and there's no blood left. Thought of the power to cultivate the soul unexpected force. He took away this shame and swallowed it. The photographer can now feel it. The soul power has increased. The homogeneous bar gap is getting closer and closer. The people around me opened their eyes. Distortion of understanding what's going on. I can't believe they lost. Vietnamese judges also resented the fact that they lost the... How many more secrets does he have? Surprising photographer right now. The wind is blowing inside the soul of the sea. Soul force continues to merge. She turned to look at the goddess. I see death very happily. She's full of admiration. Two glittering eyes looked at the photographer, uttered. The photographer won. Meanwhile, he with his soul flaming with energy. I can feel it. The soul of the sea has become stronger. Quickly promoted to homogeneous bar. A luminous column of the soul radiating powerful force. His eyes glowed coldly, and he woke up. The soul of the dead. Feel the body and smile. I think it's homogeneous. Soul force has not been merged. The rest is enough for me to reach the 2-star level. I don't know what you will feel when you find out. The sword saw that. Surprised to say, it has stopped the soul of power. Back to level. He really only has a Red Sea soul. Besides, the police force stood up. He grinned with his wobbly body gritting his teeth. Photographer, it doesn't end that simply. He swayed his body and turned his ass away. The photographer did not forget to lie. I always feel sorry for you. That's right, you don't bark. The police department shouted not to be too violent. AI, tell me to agree to your additional conditions. Then he left in the cold. The photographer here is stupid. His soul was injured a few months later. You wouldn't dare mess with me. Then Team 5 continued into the depths of the forest. The people who were walking were whispering on the side of the photographer. Someone called back. LAN weakness to the prey side. That's amazing. Yesterday I was alone in a corner. Or camped next to my tent tonight. Let's practice together. Like a lukewarm glance. Death ve next to see the aesthetic shout, Din La weak. How to fascinate photographer like this. He'll be on his face soon to think. Then turn your back cold. Even if it has nothing to do with me. The photographer is now answering LAN weekly. Thank you for the invitation of Miss. Miss Hao Yan has reached the white silver realm. Maybe I can't help you. I don't think it's necessary. Finish listening to this. I was a little surprised to look back. And if you think about it, he hadn't paid any attention to himself before. She sniffed cold and burst out into the air. Then call the photographer. Quickly use that gas to wrap him up. Immediately, the source of the magic is tempting him to do. LAN laughed silently, thinking, as long as they're men, they fascinate my art. Only water obeys. Before, I want to show up in front of the dead. Pretend to be a gentleman. Suddenly, the photographer turned around. I told you that snow loves you. It makes LAN surprisingly itchy. The photographer said sorry. I can't wait to scream through you. I have a rare kind of love like this. Hear that? LAN closed her eyes tightly and was amazed. When it doesn't work with SAO photography. More, he only looks at one thing and knows his soul. The snow I love is a plant. Can perform magic tricks. Living in the deepest place of the sun Vang. Normal people don't know this. After I merge the snow, I love Lin. I want to fall in love with the same class. It's a simple thing. I have not yet reached the level of copper. Maybe he doesn't have a memory. The mind is clean, or his will. It's already crossed the silver screen. While the concession is blanketed. Then the photographer came to the dead. It makes me wonder to ask the photographer. Why did you refuse? Isn't she very pretty? He scratched his head and laughed and said he was pretty. Not as pretty as you. It makes people surprised. Suddenly, she stepped on the beam and hesitated to say. I can't compare it to a coward. Who likes her a lot. But when he heard that, he only smiled slightly. It makes death so shy. Come to think of it, photography is cute. I saw two people staring at each other. It makes LAN jealous. It's tempting to think we're inferior to Kier. This guy is all my butter. Then she screamed. I don't believe I can't get dressed. Children don't grow hair like you. Pointing straight hand, declared Regent. One day, I will make you a god under my feet. The girl decided. This boy is mine. Who wants to touch him? You have to ask her if she agrees or not. Whoever wants to fight with me, I will not leave it alone. Listen to this. All eyes turned to the full moon. Even Chen Lin's sword was startled, surprised by this. Suddenly, he just laughed softly. After that statement, when we got to the road, everyone whispered loudly and played a laughing game, haha. This is a public confession. On the photographic side right now. Hot girl embankments one side. Ask the photographer. This is a cake. Do you want to eat or not? Are you tired or not? Do you want me to take a break? Of her ridiculous actions, the photographer must also obey. He wiped off his shirt and told me to speak. You may or may not bother me. Can't go. What to do? Go a little further. This word makes a lot of sense. The straw with tears showed a pitiful face. She threw her shirt on the ground and turned her face away. But the photographer has no regrets. On the contrary, breathe a sigh of relief. I thought it was finally peaceful. But back and forth. Lan then continues to the side. Ask the photographer with a friendly smile. You are different. We have the best wine here. Make him hot and tell him you're a ghost. Let me cover that. Are you free or something? But she winked and said, I found out I like you a little. Even though you don't like me now. But not SAO, beautiful girls like me. Who doesn't like it? I think you are blind now. One day, you'll see how cute I am. These presumptuous words make him stupid. I think you have eyes like a blind man. He immediately ran ahead. I ran to the death and breathe. The girls in the back saw him coming. They whispered to each other. This person is the one who is unlucky. I think it's also very elegant to fire. It's enough to shout through. Makes the photographer think, oh my God, please forgive me. Ask the photographer now. How are you? Not in a place where you can sing. He answered Van. You know too, I am with her. There's absolutely no relationship. But Death asked coldly. What does this have to do with us? Make the photographer full of disappointment. I never thought it could be like a previous life. Take this beautiful young woman to heart. Hugging in the chest. It's really far off the horizon. Close in front of my eyes because of Kwang Wei Kai City. First you have to improve your own strength. Determined to think this time to the ancient Lan as a monument, you have to get the spirit. The next few days, continue to train the soul. Force plundered from the source. But shouting at this woman is too annoying. I didn't leave when I was practicing, but kept by the photographer. The devil can only take her away. The next afternoon, everyone at the end. You can also see the Lan in front of you. The whole group quickly approached the city gate. In front of them is a ruined old city. It looks very desolate. Chen Lin saw the deep. This is the city of the Dark Ages. The photographer is also serious. Think of Kwang Wei Kai City after being destroyed. Just like this. Chen Lin's sword now said to finally come. Considered quite favorable. Then he took out the map and spread it down to the soaking ground. Let's say this is a map. Let's see how we go. The ruins of Lan are very old. The strong lovers have left. We can explore at will. The blue-haired man looked up, and he pointed down and said, look at this. We can go into the city from the west gate. There is only one way to get the harvest. We're going to search the neighborhood. And others agree, that's right. It's the easiest place to find treasures. The sword on one side also seems reasonable. Turn to the photographer for advice on what you mean. Suddenly, he was wrong. People think the city's neighborhoods are the easiest places to find treasures. SAO. Most of the wealth is in the hands of wealthy families. This word makes everyone agree. Talk to each other. The judge stood up and said, "This monument is 100 square meters. So many rooms are in ruins. We know where the family's home is." But the sword became interested in what he said. Turn to the photographer. "Keep talking," he said seriously. "It's easy to find the homes of the great nations. Look for areas with buildings, the most sparse architecture, because these great families, they usually have their own house." I looked at the map laughing and said it was there. "No, it must be here. The buildings in this area are huge." The sword says these lands. We had a search team before, even though we've discovered some pretty cool stuff. But not much. There's no secret 7 or tunnels. The Vietnamese judge on the one hand is cold. "I want to tell you what you know." Others soon thought of it. "You think the great families in Quan Yu Kai City." Vegetarian SAO. The photographer glanced at his cold eyes. "Talk when we talk. Can you be quiet for a moment? If you're smart, you say it." Make the Vietnamese judge also silent stiff throat immediately. Chen Lin's sword turned to him glaring and shut up. The Vietnamese judge had to shut his mouth and turn away. The photographer continued to talk. "It's perfectly normal that this place has been controlled by 6 people, because it's on the way to the center. So this is also the place that's the most gender restricted." Then he points to a spot. "It seems like this area must be the capital." It made Chen Lin's sword fall into deep contemplation. Predictions about the location of the regent. So far, it's all very standard. This place must be the government. But there were teams here. 6 controls, all underground. But I didn't see anything. The photographer continued to speak. "Of course, this place has been controlled by 6 people." He points his hand to a position like this. Near the owner of the city, there is an uninhabited land. Do you know what this land is used for? It surprised Chen Lin. This is the owner's training ground. There's a lot of big rocks here. It's made of black sandstone. Inside is empty and can't move. The neighborhood next door doesn't know what to do. I heard a lot of grass growing. Maybe this land has a problem." Chen Lin laughed and asked what he meant. "These points will have something SAO. But those places have been searched. There doesn't seem to be any harvest." Judgment photographer. "It looks like big rocks. These are the places of refuge that the great nations have created. Maybe there's something inside. There are definitely traps around. If you stick your head in, it's very likely to be in danger. The reality that I'm most suspicious of is the outside. I hear that people are surprised and full of wonder. Ask why." The photographer explained, although there's no doubt about it. "That's the safest place. That training ground was designed right next to the city government. The meaning is not simple. It's a big training ground. Maybe there's something precious inside. We're now going to the neighborhood to search." Chen Lin's sword agreed to stand up. "Fold the map. Order everyone to get their weapons and go. Now take out the bag, thinking. To deal with the delights here, I've prepared an arrow laced with drugs. He immediately pulled out the arrows he had prepared and carried it on his back, ready with the sword. Go looking for treasure. Team 5 then goes along the wall to get in. It's a pretty safe route. Meanwhile, a group of people also appeared here. The Red Riding Hood asked, "Are you sure the demons are here?" Previously, he was a disciple of Ra Sao. He replied, "That's right, cultural director. Culture can be heard." Order immediately caught the names. It looks a little high. To demand a ransom from their homes. The others kill me. The officers quickly received orders to obey. They're flying like a wind. This time on the sword. He's discovered something that just happened. Surprise from the wall. Monkeys with colorful eyes appeared, snarling at them. Quickly surrounded Chen Lin's people with swords. He said, "6 of these little mermaids follow us. But always keep your distance, waiting for their kind to arrive. They will attack us." Suddenly, an arrow shot through the sword. It amazes him. Right after that arrow, straight into the chest of a giant. That's why it fell off a beam. The others saw that and ran away. The fighter was shot and his whole body trembled. No more resistance. The sword now realized that this was an opportunity. He drew the sword in his hand. And then it's hurtling there. Take out a slash full of damage. A stream of blood spurts out. The sword's handsome face was covered in blood. He put his hands up, but in the heart of appreciation, the little ones are constantly moving. And only one shot. The others looked at each other. Who shot that arrow? Looking back, it's amazing. Realize that the photographer did it. At this time, the 5 chewers looked at them Chen. The sword hurriedly ordered everyone to raise their bow. So the whole group obeyed the order. The Vietnamese in that group are no exception. But he still thinks about photography. Since he appeared, death is getting further and further away from me. He made a mess. I thought it was just a small shot. What's hard? Move to the wall and observe. He aimed at one who was swinging on the pole. Focus your mind on such a big goal. Then the SAO may not win. He immediately shot out the arrow flying minutes to the antagonist. And everyone saw that and yelled with astonishment. The judge is out. But the X here. He also discovered the arrow, but hastily leaned away. The arrow was thrown straight to the tree next door. The crew quickly ran away. People are laughing now and their mouths are full of fun. You also think of death. I'm sure he's jealous of the photographer. While the Vietnamese court cinnamon in the countryside full of shame. Why do you think that? You're clearly looking good. He is not content. Put up your arrow and prepare to shoot again. Aiming for the megalomaniac flying through the air. Be sure to hit this time and shoot the raw arrow immediately. It's so fast, but it can dodge. The Vietnamese judge's arrow fell straight to the ground. It made him even more rural. The body stood still and stared. Everyone's laughter. Immediately out. Who is laughing to drop pants as Vietnamese judges want to find? The whole goes in. Suddenly, Chen Lin shouted angrily at his pants. What, you want to be a meal for the mermaids? The injured are getting closer and closer. Get ready with the same name. Everyone gets their own orders, AK? The dog's blood rushed to the brain. He looked at me and thought you were hurting me. He can feel his eyes too. but resentfully think green beans. Why is he staring at me? The rebellious gods of this world. You can see its itchy eyes. And then suddenly, a mountain lion came. It's screaming like crazy. The men then brandished their bow and shot raw to strike back. But surprisingly, when these arrows are dodged by the archers, one guy said they're flexible. It can't be hit. The old man, after dodging, rushed to another place. It screamed excitedly, as if to tease everyone. Suddenly, an arrow came, punctured the skull and made it fall to the ground. And no one else. The arrow was shot by the photographer himself. Then he pulled out the arrow that shot out. It just hit a megalomaniac. Other arrows photographer shoot out. He defeated countless athletes. They're lying on the ground. This made Chen Lin's sword also amazed. Before this scene, he spoke up. The next brother photographer is bothering you. He smelled cold. And anyway, we got hit a little bit. Right now, suddenly, there are more people around. They screamed bitterly. Chen Lin told him to look out. It doesn't give us time to prepare. He turned to his friends to stand up. We destroy the little ones. The crew is moving fast. The photographer turned to remind Ye Zi, and so on. Follow Team 5 closely. Carefully pay attention around. But she coldly said she didn't need you to care. You should also pay attention. Suddenly, there was a loud cry. The ground also seems to be broken. That's why the birds in the forest are flying. The photographer announced, "This is the sound of the high-level beast." Chen Lin's sword was also surprised to ask that Lin level favorite. Can Sao deduce the rank from the sound? Vietnamese white silver 5-star. The golden distance is only a little less. Chen Lin's sword spoke anxiously. 5 stars are spirit level animals. There are 20 ordinary elves. A green former. White hair appears. It hit hard in the chest and screamed furiously. Confused people say we're done. Someone immediately discovered the beast. Standing above the building. I saw Chen Lin's men looking up. Then it screams furiously. Sign the former attackers. The Lord spoke up, follow me. It's harder for them to operate in the forest. He led the party into the forest. The old men ran behind them screaming furiously. Chen Lin immediately ordered everyone to end the battle. The officers also heard the orders, but lay out the troops, ready to fight. The bald-headed man also shouted. And then the body is shaped. Turns out, it's a big tail with sharp claws. It is accompanied by a powerful soul. The photographer is also speaking on his head right now. My arrow has anesthesia, specialized in dealing with them. If you hit it, it won't move. People take that opportunity to jump in. Finished talking to him, he shot out an arrow straight at her shoulder. Made the old man scream bitterly. By the way, one of the sharpshooters said it was good. So I'm up here. He jumped up and threw a slash. Let's get you back to the coffin team. Next. The photographer then aimed at the other and shot raw. Chen Lin found a side based on it, and then jump up and finish them off. The desperate whales cry out. The former officer's body was lying around. There's blood all over this place. The photographer is hiding in a corner. He's just scouting. Maybe it's coming. Suddenly he thought wrong. I've never heard of death before. They're in love with animals like this. He immediately said. Chen Lin quickly lured it to the reserve. We can use our reserves to deal with them. Chen Lin's sword nodded. I know what it means to tell people to go there. Suddenly, the last insect appeared. He rushed to Chen Lin to find it. The roof hurried to stop him. But unfortunately, with just a cold snap, made him fly a meter away. Chen Lin, the dark sword, looked at his subordinates in horror. To protect yourself is to hurt. The 1,000-pound sword hanging armpit hair. He called out for a power. But there was an explosion. When people distort, must be the opponent of this great warrior. A loud explosion took place. Makes the photographer upset. Bow up and aim. But it's incredibly fast. I jumped on the tree to avoid this. The old man continued to scream, with sharp fangs. Angry atmosphere. The ground seemed to shake. And a power now lies unconscious under the tree. In the smoke. Others find it terrifying. Chen Lin's sword. Okay, look at this giant tiger. The guard seems to. It's got something against our bow and arrow. Don't panic, people. Then he's a fool who realizes, wait a minute. It doesn't seem right to call people. We're standing here. The goal for them is clear. We should separate. Chen Lin rushed to check a strength. And tell them to split into 6 teams. Let's focus on the reserve. The whole group quickly acted, split into groups and ran away. The old man screamed for an hour when he saw this. Here, the photographer is in the same group as the striped and the weak. They rushed to the pillars. Right now, I'm going after them. The photographer sees that. He pulled out the sword in his hand. I told you to hurry. I'll stop it. He was so worried that he reminded the photographer not to take risks. But he shouted, don't leave me alone. Let's drink and scream angrily. A little sad, he turned his face away. But she didn't forget to remember. We have to go back to the formation. The old man appeared in front of him. It screams for an hour. Dare to hold the sword in your hand. Ready to fight. He said we would definitely go back. Suddenly, the old man jumped down and landed on a beam. The ground cracked apart. And then it turns the catapult onto the photographer. Speed as fast as a wind. Immediately huge body, close to the photographer's small body. He punched a gun, a broken ground beam. Fortunately, this one was avoided. It's not broken bones. He took the opportunity to draw his sword. Let's continue this trick. The photographer, the reporter, flew to the megalomaniac. He opened his mouth when the sword came. When he thought that this hit is unexpected, the monster bit the sword again. In a gentle way, it makes the photographer stupid and terrified. Seconds later, the fighter hits the ground. And then it screamed with a loud noise, and it scattered the rocks. Hurry up and use the shield. Suddenly, he was shot away in the smoke. It's accompanied by the giant catapult Theo. He reached out and caught him. In this critical situation, then the spirit of the soul speaks of chaos. Try this. Use the soul power to thoroughly investigate. In the blink of an eye, the photographer immediately realized in the head of a small fighter, the soul's hemispherical force covers its head. It's like a protective ring. The main weakness of the company is definitely at the top. Bang dong. Love can also form love spirit as a luxury. Immediately use your soul to attack. I was surprised by a fire. It's as if it's been sprayed with hard glue. He took the opportunity to jump out of his grasp. and landed on the ground in the smoke. He cosmetology letter.